Hey there, welcome to a follow-up video on adding of fractions. So this is part 2 of the video we did. If you watched part 1, I am sure you went through these examples of adding fractions. We went through examples of fractions. Number 1, we added fractions with the same numerators. We went through how to add fractions with different denominators, but the numerators were the same. Then later on we added fractions with the same numerators, with different numerators but same denominators. Then we also added fractions with different numerators and denominators. In fractions with different numerators and denominators, we did two types of example. One example had an example whereby one of the denominators was actually the lowest common multiple. In other words, it was actually the number or the lowest number in which the two denominators could go without leaving a remainder. In this case, the denominator was 4. Okay, in this case, the denominator was 4. This is like some type of special type of special type of fraction addition. A little bit tricky, but we did it in the last video. And what else did we do here? We did this one whereby the numerators were different, the denominators were also different, which is sort of like a carry on of the addition process that we have been doing from the previous video. Okay, so I wanted to explain some few rules, few things. Where is that one? Right here. I wanted to show us this was 1 over 3 plus 1 over 4. So 1 over 3 plus, I'm gonna change it now, 1 over 6. It was 1 over 4. I want to show us something. There's a concept I want to explain. So the concept I want to explain is if you look at the denominators, you would right away realize that the denominator of the first fraction, which is 3, can actually go into the denominator of the second fraction, which is 6, without leaving a remainder. So if one of the denominator is divisible by the denominator of the other fractions, we can write that denominator which can divide the other fraction as the lowest common multiple. It actually is the lowest common multiple. So this makes work so much easier. In this one, there will be no need of multiplication. We would just say, okay, 6 is our lowest common multiple. Of course, if you wanted to work it out, we could do that. We would be able to say LCM of 3 and 6. So we write them as products of their prime factors, 1 times 3. And we write this one as product of its prime factor. So that will be 2 times 3. So LCM. So the LCM will be 1 times 3 times 2, which is 6, which is exactly what we got here. So instead of going through all this long process, if you know that, just write it there right away. So in this case, if our LCM is one of the denominators, our cross multiplication rule does not apply in this case. So in this case, what we have to do will be, we go to the first fraction and would say, we look at the denominator and would say, how much does the denominator, in this case our denominator is 3, how much does denominator 3 of the first fraction go into 6, or how much is 3 divisible by 6? So 3 can actually go into 6 2 times, so 6 divided by 3 gives us 2. So we multiply the numerator by 2 by the answer. Same story, how many times does 6 go into 6? 6 is divisible by itself 1 time, so multiply this one by 1. Okay, that's exactly what we did on the previous example, one of the examples. So we just bring this down here, times 2 plus 1 times 1. Okay, so 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 times 1 is 1, all over 6. This 2 plus 1, the sum of these gives us 3 over 6. So 3 over 6 can actually be simplified. How do we simplify that? We would say, how many times does 3, how much is 3 divisible by 3? It is 1. And how much is 3 divisible by 6? It's 2. So the answer is 1 over 2. So our final answer is actually 1 over 2. So all this can be simplified. 1 over 3 plus 1 over 6 is the same thing as 1 over 2. You get 1 over 2 as your final answer when you add it. So what I wanted to explain, the rules in this video, we just go through the rules. So first rule is adding fractions of the same numerators with different denominators. So we found out the rule for this would be okay, this would be the rule as we did it earlier. We added what? 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3. So 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3. What we did was we multiplied this one 2 times 3, and what we did was 1 times 3 multiply the numerator, cross multiplication, and 1 times 2. So which in turn gave us 3 plus 2 over 2 multiplied by 3 at 6. 2, that was 5 over 6. So making our rule is if numerators are the same and the denominators are different, and denominators are also not divisible by one another, we can always multiply to get the lowest common multiple, LCM. We multiply the denominators, and to get our numerator we multiply the numerator of the first fraction by the denominator of the second. We bring the sign as it is. If it was subtraction, would subtract, but addition would add, and multiply the numerator of the second by the denominator of the first, which is that. So this is actually a nice rule for when the denominators are not the same, when B is not the same as C, and just also not divisible by C, and A is the same. So this was rule 1. So okay, so we've sort of come up with a nice rule there. It is nice. Second rule would be, second rule, numerators are the same, numerators are the same. Second rule was for, whereby the denominator was the same. For similar denominator, as we can see, what we did was let me change this one. What we did was the numerator remains the same. This is what we did. Let me just do it quickly here. 1 over 2 plus 3 over 2. So you can see the denominators are the same. So what we just do is just write it as it is, carry it over as it is, and the numerators also just add them as they are. So that gives us 1 plus 3. It was 4 over 2, which gave us 2, the final answer. So this takes us to our second rule of when the denominators are the same, we can actually say A over B plus, when you're adding fractions of denominators which are the same, can actually do this. We just carry no multiplication just as it is, and we just add as they are. There we go. This is rule 2, when denominators are the same. When D is equal to D, when the denominators are the same, we can do that, and A is not equal to C. Therefore, okay, so what else can we do? Yes, another rule is when the denominators are different. For example, denominators are different, 1 over 2 plus 3 over 4. Denominators are different, but one of the denominators is our lowest common multiple. So we just write the denominator, which is the lowest common multiple, and find out how many times does one of the denominator goes into the lowest common multiple. In this case, times does 2 go into 4, there is 2 times, so we will multiply times 2 plus, how many times does 4 go into 4? Then we would say 3 times, it's 1 time, so that will be 3, it will be 5 over 4, which is the same thing as 1, and 1 over 4. So getting our rule here just simply means for denominators, for fractions which are not the same, but one of the denominators is divisible by is the lowest common multiple, this is applicable. So D, B, and our A would be A multiplied by D over B, okay, plus C multiplied by D over D gives us A amount of time over B plus C over D. Okay, so amount of time, that is row number 3, amount of time. And for the last one, that will be okay, adding also some story. So let's just do it quick. 1 over 4 as revision, 1 over 3 to be precise, 1 over 3. Let's just bear with me here. Now I'll finish up quickly. 1 over 3 plus 2 over 4. 2 over 4. So not equal. So product lowest common multiple, multiply 3 by 4 gives us 12. And then here we'll cross multiplication, because you would say how many times does 4 go into 12? That is 3. So numerator multiplied by 3. So same story, how many times does 3 go there? 4. So 1 times 4 plus 2 times 3, that gives us 4 plus 6 over 12, which gives us 10 over 12, which should be simplified further, of course. Simplified, that become 2 days 5 over 6. Final answer. 5 over 6 is our final answer. So the new rule is, what is our new rule here? So A over B plus C over D is equal to BD A multiplied by D and A multiplied by D plus C multiplied by B. Thank you very much for being patient. This was our final rule. Hope you enjoyed it. Rule number 4. Yes.